I wanted to introduce to you my concept of a no-till, no-weed garden. Stay tuned. Welcome to Pine Meadows Hobby Farm. We're a small homestead tucked high in the Cascade Ranges of the Pacific Northwest. And we're gardening up here on the homestead. And I've been working for 3 years to mitigate the weeding process and try to get away from rototilling my garden. What inspired me and many others out there was the Back to Eden garden movie. I went online and watched that, and man, that made the gardening task so much easier. So I adapted some of his foundational teachings on mulching. I implemented my own and came up with a no-till, no-weed garden. Now, I retired my rear-tine pony Troy-built rototiller. Yep, I retired it. I used it in the garden for several years. I got it free. A fella gave it to me. The engine was toast on it, so I just went down and purchased a brand new engine for it, put new bell on it, sharpened the tines. I have videos in my archives relating to that for those of you who are wanting to know maintenance and other things about the pony Troy-built rear tine rototiller. So there's some videos on that, and I even give you the part numbers for the belt to be able to purchase your own belt from Napa or through my Amazon link. But anyway, it's being retired, and actually I'm going to be selling it. I'll be posting it on Facebook Marketplace and my local Craigslist market and earn a little extra revenue to be able to maybe upgrade my garden even a little bit more. So getting to the garden, the first aspect of it is blocking out the weeds from growing. And from what I learned, you just lay in a mulch, and that keeps weed seeds from blowing in and taking root onto the soil because they land on top of whatever mulch surface you're laying down. In my application, I chose a black tarp visqueen, a pretty thick mill to lay down over the top of the existing ground, and that's going to serve two options for me. Number one, it's going to retain the moisture and also keep the moisture in the ground where I don't have to water as much, and it also, of course, keeps the weeds back. Now, the wood shavings, people are doing the wood chip mulch. These wood shavings I lay down over the black tarp for a couple of reasons. The one reason was to cover the black. Didn't want the black absorbing all that heat because the plastic will degrade over a period of time as exposed to the destructive influences of the sun's rays. Plus, it absorbs heat, and it basically cooks the soil, and I don't want to kill all the bacteria and enzymes and other micronutrients that are in the ground itself. So with this retaining the moisture and cutting back weeds, it's going to make the soil so much workable because the soil stays moist. That's just for this flat surface back here where I used to have to rototill every year and weed it throughout the year. I hate weeding. It's such a waste of time. It's incredibly tedious to fight the earth for your food against the evil weed. It's bad. Some weeds are good for you. They're beneficial, but those weeds I want growing in their proper place, not in my garden. Here's an example of what the mulch or the plastic mulch is doing. See, no weeds, and you've got moisture. The ground is still pliable, so it's holding moisture. And I do have kind of a clay material, so it holds moisture a lot better. And where I decide to plant my plants, I just cut a little hole into the plastic and then expose the earth below. and plant the plant. As you see what I'm doing here in preparation of this spring's planting. Now here's a homestead tip for your garden. These auger, these twist, I don't know what you call them, clamshell, not clamshell, but these fence post diggers. Use them for gardening too. These work wonderful for gardening. Let me show you an example of how it's working for me with my application of combinations of the black plastic and the wood shavings. Now I do have a weed growing up here because this is where the soil is. So if we pull back the wood shavings and we expose the plastic and the hoe, see how easy those weeds are to pull out of there because the ground is not hard. It's still pliable. So what I do is I make sure that that hole is well exposed. I just take my post hole digger and bring out the soil that's in there. Now that I've got my hole to the depth that I want it, I just bring in my soil mixture, my worm castings, my rabbit poo, and my decomposed chicken poo. So I've implemented all the good nutrients into the soil, and I'm gonna pack it in here, water it in, let it set for a couple of days. Then I'll come in and I'll plant my plant in here. In this case, I think I'm planting yellow squash in this row. So once I have the plant in place, I'll just pull the wood shavings back and over the top of the plant, and then that way the weeds won't, the weed seeds that are floating about don't have a place to take root. And then I have my drip irrigation line, and I'll be adding more little spray nozzles to the drip irrigation line, and then I have this little tool just to punch the holes on it and place these nozzles where I want the water to go. So I'm not watering the whole surface of the garden, because mind you, most of it is just mulch. I just want to make sure the water gets to where I want it, especially in this area back here that's going to be melons, and that way the sprinkler system won't bother the bees. We'll just have the drip irrigation lines down through here. And then from an estate cleanup, I picked up these two timers, battery operated timers, that will be able to control the watering of two sides of the garden. So bonus, yeah, I got this going. Plus I got the drip irrigation line from an estate cleanup. I got so fortunate when I got invited to do those estate cleanups. I was able to get a lot of material to be able to augment my garden. And then there's the other no-till aspect of my garden. That is, I created these raised beds. I had my buddy mill from his mountain and his own portable sawmill these timbers, this Doug fir timber, to be able to put into my garden and make raised beds here. Because my soil is so shallow and it's real loaded with clay, it doesn't make for a great growing medium. But with this implementation of this really good organic soil that I purchased, plus the chicken poo and the rabbit turds, I was able to also implement in the garden. And with the addition This year I added the vermiculture, so we have worm castings to be able to put into the garden, and so throughout the season, you'll be able to see just how well my plants are doing with a combination of the worms, the worm castings, and worm tea. I hope for a really great garden. I started my plants indoors in January, and I am just so chomping at the bit to get them out. This is April 17th, and it was frosty this morning still, so I cannot bring my plants outdoors yet, but they're growing like gangbusters inside, and it makes me really happy. I just want to get them out in the garden. For the raised beds and some of the paths, I acquired this weed barrier. It allows water through but does not allow weeds up from the bottom. And I laid that down and put the mulch over the top of it. Later, my plan is to bring in pea gravel and line the whole perimeter of the garden with pea gravel, and on all the paths with pea gravel. And just take all the organic material that we have in the pathway and use that someplace else. This raised bed right here. I'm planting my corn down here. I'm going to have a small corn crop. I mulched this garden bed with rice straw. Rice straw available in our area comes in from California. They have rice fields down there. I suppose in the central parts of the United States you'll have rice fields down there, so you can get a hold of your local co-op or feed store and inquire about rice straw. The reason why I picked rice straw is because it doesn't carry seed that produces weeds. And it did fabulous. I just removed the rice straw from this bed today, and no weeds, absolutely no weeds. And it kept the moisture in the soil. I'm ready to add a little bit more soil and supplement to the soil and plant the corn and other crops in here. I'm not getting rid of the rice straw by no means. I went ahead and relocated it over here on top of the area that's exposed where my raspberry canes are growing. So the canes will grow up through there, but again, weed seeds won't have a place on a soil to set in their roots and grow. So same way with the grapes. For the most part, I do have a few weeds, but nothing compared to what I would have if I did not have this mulch barrier down. And also, it's fantastic to be able to come out here, pluck up a few weeds, spend a couple of hours, and then plant the garden without tilling it. It takes the task of gardening down significantly. Well, I'm Jerry Hansen, your host. This is my homestead and my little garden up here on the homestead. Please stay tuned to new videos. You can do that by subscribing, then clicking that bell icon. That alerts you to new videos as I do upload them. Something else you could do for me is click that like button, like the show, and also share videos on your social media platforms. Helps out the channel a lot. Please share your comments and your insights, and also let me know if I've helped you with sharing my tips and tricks that I've been developing over years just by doing and just trying to make my life easier and make the gardening process so much more pleasant and less labor intensive. Always remember, be safe, and always be kind. We'll see you guys in the next episode, okay? Bye-bye now.